Uh, Good morning, everyone. And today is 5th June, and this is Environmental Day, International Environmental Day. So I wish you best of luck. And today we have with us our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Odisha State Open University, Professor Srikant Mahapatra, and he has chosen a very important topic: use of open sources for university level teaching and research. This is a very, very important topic, and I think I'm going to miss dear participant and Honorable Vice Chancellor, our revered speaker, technical team, and our coordinator, Professor Das Mahapatra. I may be excused. Today I have a video conferencing meeting with our Honorable Chancellor, and the time is 11:30. So within next 5 minutes I'm leaving, and I wish you all the best, Srikant sir. And on behalf of the university, Sambalpur University, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to you for giving your consent to deliver a topic which, in fact, we have requested you to. The requested topic is use of open resources for university and university level teaching and research. Thank you very much. And now back to our chairman postgraduate council, who has you know agreed to my request, and he will coordinate the entire program today. Professor Das Mahapatra, it's your time.
Thank you very much, sir, and thank you for beginning this session. Good morning, everyone. The esteemed resource person, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Odisha State Open University, all other participants, Honorable Vice Chancellor, former Vice Chancellor of Utkal University, and the present Chairman, Chairperson, Odisha Higher Education Council, Professor Ashok Das, Professor Patra, uh, all dear participants. Before I had the privilege of introducing our resource person to the participants, and with these words in the beginning, I once again welcome every one of you and thank our own Vice Chancellor who gave the introductory words. Now it is the time to welcome our very honored and distinguished resource person for today's morning, Professor Srikant Mahapatra. Professor Mahapatra is the founder Vice Chancellor of Odisha State Open University, and he is an expert in online and distance learning education system. A postgraduate in political science from Utkal University, Professor Mahapatra obtained MPhil and PhD degree from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Before taking over the reign of Odisha State Open University, he worked at IGNOU headquarters as the Director Regional Service Division during 2012-15. He was the Register Student Evaluation Division during 2005 to 2009 and 2014 and 15. He had also assumed charge as Director Defense Unit and Head of the Community College Unit and Convergence Unit of IGNOU. Professor Mahapatra also served as the Controller of Examination and Registrar of Sikkim Central University, Gangtok. Professor Mahapatra was a member of the UGC committee responsible for formulating UGC Open and Distance Learning Regulations 2017 and a member of the National Task Force constituted for preparing guidelines for NAAC assessment and accreditation of the open and distance learning institutions in the country. He has served as a member of several statutory bodies like the Board of Management, Academic Council, Planning Board, and Research Council. Dr. Mahapatra successfully managed the affairs of 67 regional centers and efficient running of 3,000 IGNOU study centers as the Director Regional Services Division. Professor Mahapatra has attended seminars as well as workshops and participated in deliberations in the United Kingdom, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Nepal. Because of his immense contribution in providing best services to the students, Professor Mahapatra was awarded with the IGNOU Gold Medal by the former President of India, late Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Professor Mahapatra's preeminence as an architect and academic administrator in the fields of online and distance learning is widely acclaimed. With this brief introduction, I would request Professor Mahapatra to deliver his talk, and today's talk that Professor Mahapatra will be delivering is use of open resources in university level teaching and research. We know the significance of this topic, particularly when UGC has been uh, asking, and it is rather a requirement at the moment, that we should really be converting to online education system. And it should not come as a surprise that the present requirement of 20% online and 80% might just get reversed, that 80% may be online and 20% may be classroom teaching. Given this significance and the importance that this particular topic holds in the present juncture, I welcome Professor Mahapatra to kindly take over and deliver his talk. And I also welcome all the participants and all dignitaries who are there with us for this particular session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Das Mahapatraji, for this wonderful introduction of the resource person and the topic. Very good morning to all the distinguished participants. At the outset, I must congratulate Professor Deepak Kumar Behra, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sambalpur University, and his esteemed colleagues in Sambalpur University for arranging this wonderful series of lectures by the Vice Chancellors of State Open Universities. We started with a presentation by the Commissioner cum Secretary Higher Education, Government of Orissa, followed by a very lively discussion by none other than Professor Ashok Das, Honorable Vice Chairperson of the Orissa State Higher Education Council, and then followed by lectures by the Vice Chancellors of different universities in Orissa. I think the feedback that I am getting is really a success story, and I must congratulate and compliment the entire staff headed by the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Sambalpur University for this wonderful, wonderful initiative. Friends, I have been given a topic on which I cannot claim. As Das Mahapatra sir said, I am an expert on online learning. In fact, let me tell you very clearly, I am an expert on, I can reasonably say that I am an expert on distance education, but is a keen student of online education as well. My background is face-to-face education. I have come from traditional system, studied in Sambalpur University, Utkal University, Jawaharlal Nehru University, taught in Orissa colleges for 10 years, then worked for 25 to 27 years in IGNOU, and for the last 5 years, I have been working with Orissa State Open University. So it's a combination of regular university teaching, open university administration, and leaning towards open and distance learning and online learning. So with this background, I would like to invite all of you to my presentation. Before I go to my presentation, I would like to say that the 21st century, we all live in a knowledge society. The 18th century was a feudal society. 19th and 20th century were industrial society. And the beginning of the 21st century, we have seen the creation of a knowledge society. In the feudal society, land was the possession over the land, ownership over the land was with the few, and they were called as the landlords. The rest were insignificant. When we entered into the industrial society or a capitalist state or society, we found that possession over capital was in the hands of few. The rest were working for the capitalists. The vast majority had no possession over the industry or the industrial capital. But when we enter into the 21st century, which is branded as a knowledge society, we say that there is nobody who has a monopoly over knowledge. Like the previous societies, feudal state where monopoly over land, industrial state where there is monopoly over the industry. But in a knowledge society, the uniqueness is nobody has monopoly over knowledge. Knowledge is free. Knowledge is universal. Knowledge is inclusive. Knowledge is all pervasive. Anyone, anytime, anywhere can acquire knowledge. This is the beauty of knowledge society in the 21st century. Now, when we say that anytime, anywhere, anyone can acquire knowledge, knowledge is free, only certificate, if you are looking for a certificate, then you have to pay the minimum charges. If you look for some kind of support, guidance, counseling, tutoring, you need to pay. But if you simply want to acquire knowledge, you don't have to pay. Because in the knowledge society, knowledge is free. It is for everyone. Nobody can say that I have monopoly over knowledge. So with this background, I would like to apprise the distinguished participants how open education resources, popularly known as OER, plays an important role, a pivotal role in knowledge society, with the hope that knowledge will become universal, knowledge will be all pervasive, knowledge will reach every corner of the society, knowledge can be acquired anytime and anywhere. So my presentation, I'll start my presentation now, and I'll request my colleague Ansuman to share the slides. Yeah, go to the next slide, please. Yes, let me start with the structure of my presentation. I'll be first talking about what are open education resources or OER. Then I'll go to why we should adopt OER. Why use Creative Commons licenses for using OER? The next point that I'll be discussing is where can we find open education resources? Next, I'll talk about how to adopt open education resources, because earlier I have said why adopt. Now I'll talk about how to adopt OER. And then finally, I'll discuss about the global and the local initiative, that is Indian initiative and the worldwide initiative on use of OER, creation of OER and use of OER. Let me first define what is open education resources as per the UNESCO document. And this definition was in fact started with the UNESCO Global Assembly resolution in the year 2002, where they said OER are learning, teaching and research materials in any format and medium that reside in the public domain or are under copyright, that have been released under an open license, that permit no cost access, reuse, repurpose, adaptation and redistribution by others. So this is the standard acceptable definition of open education resources, and it has come from the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization in the year 2002. Initially it started, but the UN every year at every regular interval is talking about open education resources and its universal application. My second slide is the UN recommendations, which has come very recently in November 2019, which highlighted the important role of open education resources in the construction of open, inclusive, and participatory knowledge societies. The knowledge society should be open, it should be inclusive. By inclusive knowledge society, we mean that all sections, all races, all sex, and all region, it should be all pervasive, and it should be participatory. So they have talked about 5 basic recommendations. In November 2019, the General Conference of the UNESCO has passed this resolution. I wanted to bring it to your kind notice. One is building the capacity of the stakeholders. We are all stakeholders. The students, the teachers, the researchers, the faculty at the school, at the college, at the university, at research institutions, and the general public who are acquiring knowledge and seeking knowledge. So building the capacity of stakeholders to create, access, reuse, adapt, and redistribute OER is one of the major objectives of open, inclusive, and participatory knowledge society. The second is developing supportive policies for OER. This supportive policy may be a global policy like UNESCO recommendations. It may be a national policy. It may be a state policy. It may be an institutional policy like a policy of the university, or it may be the policy of an organization. Encouraging inclusive and equitable quality OER. So there are 3 concepts involved in it. One is inclusive. I have said that whether it is Asia, Africa, Latin America, whether it is the whites or the blacks, whether it is the male and the female or the transgenders, whether it is the poor or the rich, it should be all pervasive, all inclusive, and it should aim at equitable and quality OER. So quality is the hallmark of any open education resources which the UNESCO has recommended for maintenance. Then nurturing the creation of sustainability model for OER. It's not that OER will come and go, but the quality has to be maintained and the sustainability has to be maintained. It has to sustain over a long period of time, and it should not come and vanish. And promoting and reinforcing international cooperation in OER. It's very important that international cooperation among the East and the West, among the North and the South, among the developed and the developing countries is one of the hallmarks of quality development of inclusive, quality, equitable OER. Then why should we adopt open education resources? First is that it enhances universal access. What is more important is access, because we all say that majority of the people have no access to knowledge. So one of the major objective of open education resources is that it will enhance universal access. It is putting emphasis on contextualization and customization. That means you can use, reuse, contextualize, modify, translate, repurpose the open education resources. So contextualization and customization. An open source material developed in Orissa can be customized for Maharashtra. An open source material developed in Asia can be customized for Africa. So customization is more important. Contextualization and customization. Reduced and shared cost. Now when OER is developed, you are only adding to it, redistributing it, customizing it, then definitely there will be a change in cost. It will be, the cost factor will be reduced and the time factor will also be reduced. Then scalability. Scalability is more important for any type of content development. The learning objectives, the learning outcomes can be measurable, can be scalable, and OER has the prime objective of scalability of both the learning objectives and the learning outcomes. What do we want to teach and what are we going to achieve? Whether it is a unit learning objective or a course learning objective or a module learning objective or a program learning objective. Learning objective are to be measured, are to be scalable. Then quick circulation, because it is available in the digital platform and most of the OER are digital, in the form of digital OER. So it also, and it is in open license, it is circulated quickly around the globe within no time. Then it promotes lifelong learning. Now please remember that lifelong learning is one of the sustainable goals identified by the United Nations to be achieved by 2030. There are 17 goals, development goals, sustainable development goals. And the fourth goal is quality education and promotion of lifelong learning. Of course, the 17th goal talks about international cooperation to achieve all these goals. So when you talk about quality education, when you talk about OER, when you talk about promotion of lifelong learning, international cooperation, institutional cooperation, national cooperation between two nations, between two universities, among universities are essential for developing quality, inclusive, open education resources. And the most important aspect of OER, why we should adopt OER, is safety from copyright concerns. I'll be in my other slides, I'll be going to the copyright concerns, how it is hindering the spread of knowledge. So OER has no such copyright concerns, therefore OER can be easily circulated. But the most important aspect of open education resources are 5 R's. The first is retain, reuse, revise, remix, and redistribute. You retain it, it's your own, have control over it, your own copy of the content. You can reuse it, use the content in its unaltered form. Even if you don't change it, you can still reuse it. You can revise it, you can adapt it. So when we say adapt, that means you can change it, you can contextualize it, you can customize it, you can modify it, you can translate it to Oriya language or to any other local language. You can adjust, you can modify, you can improve, you can alter. Then remix, you can combine the original and the revised and create a remix. You can add some videos, you can add some multimedia, you can add some graphics, you can add some presentations to your content. So remix and redistribute. After remixing or revising, you can redistribute the material in the same OER or Creative Commons license. So it's very easy to adopt the open education resources. Next. Then what is that open in open education resources? It is open resource, it is an open source, it is open access, it is open content, it is open courseware in the form of a module or a course or a program. It's an open source software also. The type of software in which we are all together now is an open source software. Moodle is an open source software which is a learning management platform. Part of Zoom is an open source software which all of us are using. So whether it is Google Meet, whether it is Zoom, whether it is your other softwares like LMS, Moodle-based LMS, these are all open source software and we are freely using it. Open education, it promotes open education worldwide and open education resources finally. So everything is open here in open education resources. Then R in the OER, what is that resource? The resource is available in the form of text. It can be reading material, it can be textbooks, open textbooks, which is very recently a new phenomenon, and it can be available, as I have said, it is available in modules, it can be available in the form of courses, it can be available in the form of text, assignments, case studies, WhatsApp, training manuals. It can be images, photographs, audio visuals, animations. It can be presentation. My presentation is available in open license now. Whatever presentation I am making here is, I don't have any right over it. It's open source, and I'll be telling you about the license for this open source material. And it can be a full course also. Next. Yes. So open courseware, the movement, as I said, 21st century is the century of knowledge society. In fact, 2001 had made two major beginnings, because 2002 UN resolution for open education resources can be seen in the light of open courseware of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT open courseware. They defined, an open courseware is defined by the Open Courseware Consortium as a free and open digital publication of high quality university level educational materials. These materials are organized as courses and often include course planning materials and evaluation tools, as well as thematic content. So it is MIT to say, in the 21st century, all credit goes to MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, in the year 2001 to start the open courseware movement, and it was followed by Creative Commons and then the UNESCO resolution in 2002. Then the question that normally comes to our mind is, how open is an open license? We say that it is open education source, but is it really open? Is it 100% open, 80% open, 50% open? How much it is open? Now, before I go to the different aspect of open license, let me tell you that an OER is based on certain conditions and certain freedom. The conditions are mostly highlighted by four aspects. One is attribution, whether you are attributing, acknowledging, mentioning the person who has created the OER, the institution which has created the OER. And every research scholar, every teacher is very much familiar with the word attribution, reference, acknowledging the contribution, citing. These are all used in research terminology. Then there is another condition which I'll be discussing in details about share alike, whether I have created an OER and it is being reused by you, whether you can give a different license to it. Can you make it a copyright material? If I have released in OER, can you release it in copyright? or can you give a different Creative Commons license? That we'll be discussing. Then whether OER can be used for non-commercial purpose or commercial purpose. That is also an aspect which we'll be discussing, because these are the conditions of OER. Then no modifier, whether you can modify an OER, remix it, redistribute it, or are there certain OERs which are not to be modified, not to be changed, not to be contextualized, not to be customized. Then what are the freedom that are associated with the OER? That I have already said, it is open access, you can copy it, you can modify it, you can redistribute it. So then I'll go to the next slide, please. Yeah, before I go to the open source license or the Creative Commons license, let me just remind you, all of you are very familiar with copyright and the symbol associated with copyright, C within a circle. Now, what does that copyright mean? It means prohibits unauthorized use, distribution, performance, adaptation or change, and sale, etc. If any knowledge resource is released under copyright, then unauthorized use is prohibited. You cannot distribute it, you cannot change it, you cannot sell it. It requires permission of the copyright holder. It may be the author, it may be the publisher, who are the copyright holders. It requires the permission of the copyright holder for creating any derivative work, any change, any modification, any customization, any contextualization is part of the derivative work. So for that, you need the permission of the copyright holder. But even in copyright, there is certain clause which talks about fair use or fair dealing is permitted. Now, what is that fair dealing in copyright? Examples of fair use includes, if you make a commentary on what is written in a book, what is written in an article, it is permissible. You can search it in different search engines like Google and others. You can review it, criticize it, or you can also give credit to the contribution. For news reporting, any copyright material, if it is reported in newspaper, electronic media, print media, or social media, it is, and if it is reasonable reporting and reasonable criticism, it is permitted. For research, any kind of copyright with due acknowledgement, due reference, due citation is permitted. There is no prohibition. For teaching, if you are using any copyright material for your teaching in the university and colleges, you have no problem. And library archiving and scholarship, for any scholarship work or for library archiving or library collections, copyright materials can be used. But nevertheless, you cannot make major changes, you cannot copy it, you cannot sell it, you cannot redistribute it. Now, against that background, let us see what that double C instead of single C within a circle, that is Creative Commons license, gives to us. Now, this movement for Creative Commons started from California in the United States in the year 2001. And that is that I have said is the beginning of the knowledge society. There are three important events in my presentation which I am highlighting. One is the licensing, new licensing of open licensing of Creative Commons. Second is the MIT courseware movement, open courseware. And third is the 2002 General Body Resolution of the UNESCO for open education resources. Now, broadly, if you see the Creative Commons license, which is opposed to the copyright licensing system, you find basically 6 licenses. Though I have mentioned this CC0, which is available in public domain, it's absolutely free. So, but otherwise, if you go to the licenses, there are 6 licenses. I'll be explaining these 6 licenses in the simplest way possible to the distinguished participants. The first license is CC BY. CC stands for Creative Commons and BY stands for attribution. By whom? By me, by you, by my university, by my government. So BY stands for attribution. Who has created the knowledge resources? Also get familiar with the symbols. So CC stands for Creative Commons, BY stands for attribution. So one license is CC BY. That is the most open license, and I'll explain how it is the most open license. Then CC BY SA, Creative Commons, attribution and share alike. That means if you are releasing any of your contribution to the knowledge society and you are releasing it under CC BY SA license, and if I use your resources because it is an open source material, I have to release it under the same license. Share alike means it has to be shared alike in the same license, but it can be remixed, it can be contextualized, it can be translated, it can be modified, and it can be redistributed. But it has to be redistributed in the same license. The third is CC BY NC. NC stands for non-commercial. So Creative Commons, attribution, non-commercial. That means you cannot use it for commercial purpose. But in CC BY SA, though you are releasing it in the same license, you can use it for commercial purposes if you want. I would like to tell you the example of Odisha State Open University. Ever since Odisha State Open University has been established, we have adopted open source policy for a Creative Commons license, and under Creative Commons license, we have adopted CC BY SA. That means it is Creative Commons, attribution, share alike, and anybody can use it, change it, contextualize, translate it, modify it, remix it, repurpose it, commercially use it, but has to release it under the same license. But that will not happen in case of CC BY NC, because NC stands for non-commercial. It is Creative Commons, attribution, non-commercial. You cannot use it for non-commercial purposes. I think my colleagues in Netaji Subhash Open University in West Bengal, they have decided that they will not allow their study material to be used for any commercial purposes. The fourth license is CC BY NC SA. Now here it is Creative Commons, attribution, non-commercial, and share alike. You cannot use it for commercial purposes. You can change it, contextualize, modify it, redistribute it, remix it, but you have to use the same license CC BY NC and SA. The next license is CC BY NC. Now it is Creative Commons, attribution, non-derivative. Now non-derivative means you cannot change it, you cannot contextualize it, you cannot remix it. It has to be released, any change. The last is CC BY NC and D. CC Commons, attribution, non-commercial, and non-derivative. The most rigid license among the Creative Commons. Most rigid. So people say last two licenses like your CC BY and CC BY C and D are not actually OEM, but since they are released under Creative Commons, you can use it without any prior permission. You don't require the permission of the copyright owner, either the publisher or author to use it, but you cannot change it. So in that sense, it is open source, but since you are not said that anything that can be remixed, changed, contextualized, customized, translated, modified, it can be done. Now go to the previous. Please go to the back. Go back. See, the last slides I have said. Next one. Next slide. I'll go to the next slide. Yes, this one. So if you see this slide, you find from least freedom to most freedom. And you see least freedom are two where ND is there. Non-derivative, no change, no remix, no contextualization, no translation. But if you go up, you find that you can change it, context. So there are two things which are common. All these symbols, except what is in public. Creative Commons license is common to all. That means you don't require prior approval of the author knowledge to use it. If you see by is common, by, that is attribution, whether it is CC-BY, whether it is CC-BYNC, CC-BY or CC-BYND or CC-BY-NCND, attribution is complete. So I am telling it for research scholars and teachers and the faculty. Whenever you are using an open source material, don't forget to attribute it to the author who has created it, because attribution is also, it is a copyright material or it is an OER material. So, but the OER has a hierarchy where the most freedom is given, least freedom is given to CBY, NC and ND. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. So here the aspects, one is, can someone use the material which is released under Creative Commons license for commercial purpose? Or can someone create new version of it? I have said that there is a symbol, non-derivative C. You cannot create new version, you cannot change it. But for commercial use, you can use CC-BY for commercial purposes, you can use CC-BY for commercial purposes, and where there is CC-BY and derivative, you can use commercial purposes. Otherwise, where there is a NC clause attached to the Creative Commons license, you cannot use it for the commercial purposes. Next. Next, yeah. And my next question is, where do we find the OER? As I have said that there are search engines which are available. Google is the most powerful search engine. Even Bing search engine are the three most important search engines where you can see a lot of available. Go to the Institute of Technology OpenCourseware. You can go to the OLearn of the British Open University. You go to the Commonwealth of Learning. Commonwealth of Learning, which is an intergovernmental organization, Commonwealth countries, has a vast repository of open source material, and I hope my friend Sanjay Misra, who happens to be closely associated with Sambalpur, who originally is also participating. Yeah, I think I have covered this slide where I have said that where can we find open education resources. You can go to any search engine, and the most popular search engine is of course the Google, MIT, Courseware. I have also said by the Courseware, which is a large repository of the courseware. Many of the open universities, the OpenLearn is the open source material of the UKOU, United Kingdom Open University, which has OpenLearn. And then there are different directories, directory of open education resources and OER Commons. Under Creative Commons, you can find a lot of OER available in the digital platform. Next. If you come to the Indian context, as I was telling you, that in India, we have the SWAYAM platform, we have the NPTEL platform. And SWAYAM stands for the study of waves of active learning for young aspiring mind, and NPTEL stands for National Program of Technology Enabled Learning. These are two initiatives of the Ministry of Human Resource Development. SWAYAM is a portal for the MOOCs courses, and NPTEL is a portal where all the IITs in India have created a consortium for developing OER material. Then there is a national repository of OER, OER. Then IIT Bombay has a project Oscar where they have created a lot of open education resources. That is an open education resource for the school curriculum. The Homi Bhabha Center for Science Education, that is Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, has created a repository of OER. The National Institute of Open Schooling, which is called as Open School at the national level, they have a OER. The teacher training programs, Indian Teacher Education Training, which is school-based support, and OER. Then open universities such as my university, OSOU, the Netaji Subhash Open University in West Bengal, the Uttarakhand Open University, the Krishnakant Handike State Open University in Guwahati. They have good repository of OER. Next. So I have said about the OER initiative of OSOU, though it's a new university, only 5 years, it is going to be completing in coming 10th, that is next Wednesday. But we have started a OER movement. We have participated in the open education resources, which is called as eGyanagar, and we have vast collection of different modules. There are around 1,000 modules available, both for undergraduate programs and for postgraduate programs in different subjects, including computer science, disaster management, e-commerce, climate change, English, commerce, and accounting, many other programs, journalism, rural development, and many others. Next. I'll quickly finish it in another 2-3 minutes. Yeah, then there is a Swayam Prabha, which is a 32 DTH direct to home educational TV channel. Again, another initiative by Government of India, which was inaugurated in 2016. And people in this COVID period have now realized that since many people do not have access to internet, the television is the easiest medium to reach out to the student. And that is the reason why I find a lot of educational programs available in the television. So the Swayam Prabha channel, Swayam Prabha educational TV channels, there are 32 DTA channels in the country. IGNOU has one, Open Universities have one, and IITs, IIMs, they have one. Agriculture has separate channel, engineering has separate channels. So all the channels 24 hours into 7, the educational programs are being broadcasted, and these are all open source material. Next. Then, as I have already said, NPTEL, National Program for Technology Enabled Learning, which is an initiative of all the IITs, particularly the older IITs. They have joined hands to develop different OER resources in engineering, and it is extremely popular among the engineering students and teachers. These materials and videos available in NPTEL platform are extremely popular, and based on this popularity, the Government of India has created the National Mission for Technology Enabled Learning. Next. And Swayam Portal, as I have said, the Swayam Portal is again Government of India initiative, and lot of OER materials are available in this portal. Go to the next. Swayamprabha, I have already said, and videos are available. The National Academic Depository, we are all now familiar with the National Academic Depository, where degrees, certificate, mark sheets are all stored. And it is a digital platform. In the digital form, these are available 24/7. Any student who has registered under the National Academic Repository and having a user ID and password can anytime, anywhere, go to the website and download the grade card and certificates, and any reliable verification agency can also download the certificates and mark sheets of the student from the National Academic Depository. Next. Then eSindhu. We are all university teachers and college teachers. We are all familiar with this initiative of MHRD, and it is being managed by InfiniBnet Center, and it is a large repository of the OER materials and information available in the digital platform. Next. The National Digital Library, again, it is an initiative which is being at present handled by IIT Kharagpur, and it has large repository, around 65 million books and journals and thesis are available in the National Digital Library of Government of India. These are all open source material for everybody. Then eYantra, again an initiative of IIT Bombay, which is sponsored by the Ministry of Human Resource Development, and all the resources available. It generated embedded system engineering with practical outlook, help provide practical solution to some of the real world problems. An initiative of IIT Bombay, which is available in the OER as OER repository. Then you have the virtual labs. Government of India and UGC are now saying that during the period of COVID, for science graduates, particularly postgraduates, go to the virtual labs and use the facilities available in the virtual lab. So this virtual lab, which is an initiative under the Ministry of Human Resource Development, is highly recommended for university and college teachers, researchers, and students. So similarly, Project Oscar of IIT Bombay. Next, please. Open education resources for schools. Again, it is an initiative within India. Next, National Repository of OER. It is a repository under the Ministry of Human Resource Development, and other national and state universities and institutes are all participating in it, and it is a vast repository of open education resources which you can use freely without seeking any permission. Of course, National Open School is a nationally popular open school with few million students and largest open school anywhere in the world, in the Commonwealth. So they have a repository of resources. Then this TESS India, it is for the teacher education. It is an open source material available for practicing teachers and aspiring teachers, and all the teacher education resources are available in the form of open source by, again, TESS India. Next, then multimedia. As I have said, it's not the content, it's not the text only, but lot of videos, lot of multimedia, lot of graphics, lot of pictures, lot of animations are available under the open source. And I have given few such links: commonswikimedia.org, then flickr.com/Creative Commons org, youtube.com. If you go to YouTube, you find lot of videos available for undergraduate and postgraduate programs, which are available under the choice-based credit system, and you don't have to create your own video. When videos are available, when contents are available, you can customize it, you can translate it, you can contextualize it as per the requirement of your student. You don't have to create a new content. That is what is my submission to the faculty and the teachers of the universities who are present here. Next, how to adopt OER. This is my last but one slide. It defines the objective, scope, and the timeline. You have to fix a timeline when and how to adopt, and you define your objective and your scope, why you want to adopt OER. Like the way I have adopted in Odisha State Open University, I also request all the other universities to have a OER policy of their own. And because you see, knowledge is free, but who is creating the knowledge? Like the resources, financial resources, people say that most of the knowledge is created in the West and in the North. South is the consumer of the knowledge, and we all belong to the South. We all belong to the developing countries. We are the consumer of knowledge, and North of the developed countries are the producers of knowledge. So my message to all the faculty and teachers is that why can't we also become, as a student, as a faculty, as a researcher, why can't we also produce knowledge? This is my last slide. That is how to adopt the OER. You should have access, because when we say access, it talks about infrastructure, it talks about availability of computer, internet, connectivity, and electricity. Now, these are the problems that are there in developing countries and in some parts of the developed countries as well. So it's a policy decision of the government to create or to give access to anybody and everybody to have access to the OER material. Then permission. Now the government has to give you permission, the institution has to give you permission to use the OER via the CC license or create OER via institutional policy. Either the institution will permit you or you can create. Then awareness. You should be aware of what is OER and what type of license that you will use to disseminate the information in the digital platform. Then the capacity. Capacity is required. Many of the teachers have to be trained. Technical skills are required, how to contextualize it, how to remix the earlier created OER and the modified OER, how to embed your multimedia into the OER, little bit of capacity building, then availability of relevant OER, of requisite quality. What is that quality OER? That you have to identify, either at the individual level or at the institutional level. And finally, volition to adopt OER, your commitment, your mindset has to change. You have to have firm commitment to use and adopt OER. Unless the mindset changes, unless we feel that everything is, I have created this is my own, nobody can use it without my permission. This mindset has to change. We have to see and feel that I have created knowledge, I am proud of the creator of knowledge, but my knowledge is for the larger society. My creation is for the inclusive society, and anybody who can improve it is always welcome. Anybody who can redistribute it so that it can reach the maximum number of people. And finally, I would say that research has proved, particularly for the research scholars and those who are writing research articles, I would like to share one research finding, that research has proved that anything which is released under Creative Commons license has more citations, has larger number of citations than anything which is released under copyright license. So if you release your contribution to the knowledge society through Creative Commons license, then you'll find that the attribution, acknowledgement, and reference and citation is going to be more. So with these, I'd like to see who are present here and who are participating through the social media. That is my humble request to all of you to join the OER movement, of which we should become a part, because knowledge all, but what is not known is definitely vast. We have not created knowledge from the grassroots. So let knowledge develop from the grassroots. Let knowledge be not imposed from the top. If knowledge develops from bottom and comes from the grassroots, indigenous knowledge, let it grow. And it can grow through the open education resource movement, of which let's join hands and become parts. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, sir, for this mind-blowing presentation, the talk that you delivered. Uh, it is extremely useful to everyone, the teachers, the resource scholars, and I know with us in the audience, I would say, we have very, very distinguished personalities like Dr. Ashok Das, uh, eminent former Vice Chancellor and the Chairperson now of the Higher Education Council, Madam Madhumita Das joined before, Professor Patra, the Vice Chancellor of Ravenshaw University, and many more who are there online. And sir, I know in the process of your delivery on use of open resources in the university level teaching and research, you have reached out to so many, and I'm very sure you have been able to open the minds of all the researchers and the teachers, particularly to get the resources which is freely available. And especially, yet you have given so much input about the copyrighted materials, what is free and what is of course not free. And throughout the talk, it was really it is a mind-blowing talk. In fact, you started with what is open education resources, why we are, where to get we are, how to adopt we are, and you have given the global scenario as well as the uh, in India. And uh, uh, we are very thankful to you. Kamalpur University is grateful to you for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, and reaching out to larger audience. Now, this is the time that we have actually received a good number of questions. Uh, I would just request my colleague here, Professor Ashok Mahapatra, to take up the questions. And I request Professor Mahapatra, sir, second Mahapatra, sir, to kindly give your response to some of the questions which are possible to take up within the given time frame. Thank you, sir. Professor Ashok Mahapatra.
Good afternoon, sir, and thank you very much. I would just make a brief synopsis of your lecture as a moderator before taking the questions, and thank you for delivering a very insightful, unvaluable talk, which is rich in information. And you did talk about not merely the open resources and their usefulness, but also the locations of those open resources, which are very useful. And one more very important point that you made was not merely did you talk about the Creative Common license, but also towards the end of your talk, you said that those who publish their papers in these kinds of journals, open access journals, or they include their papers in part of the open resources and take Creative Commons license, there is a likelihood that their papers will be very widely cited and referenced. Thank you very much. So, and we have a few questions. Thank you once again. I must express my thanks to Professor Ashok Das, who has been actually listening to all these deliberations and talks all these days, and he intervenes with this question. Knowledge, though defined as immensely equitable, has been converted to a consumer product with IPR barriers, and it has become applicable. How are we going to make it equitable again? This is Professor Das's question.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Professor Ashok Das, sir, for listening to this presentation. In fact, I have said that copyright, if you go to copyright, then it is characterized by rigidity, it is characterized by prior permission, prior approval, either from the author or the publisher, whosoever possesses the copyright. But if you go to the Creative Commons license, that is CC license, you don't have to seek the prior approval. And you can create your own license. You can decide your own license. In my individual capacity, if I am writing something, I will decide which license is appropriate for me. If I am working in Sambalpur University or any other university, and if the university decides that this is the particular license under Creative Commons that the university has decided to adopt through a decision of the syndicate or the senate, then as a teacher till the time I am working, I will follow and release all my contribution as a faculty through that license. But nevertheless, this material which is released under Creative Commons ensures equitable distribution. By equitable distribution, I mean whosoever has access to the internet. All of us know that India has the largest access to internet after China. I was looking at the figure, 670 million Indian people out of 130 million people in this country have access to internet. So it's not a small number. In terms of percentage, yes, we have not encouraging percentage compared to the West, but in terms of volume, I would say that large number of people, particularly people who are university and college students, particularly learned people, not the illiterate people, particularly the urban people, even internet has penetrated to the rural areas. So people have access to the internet. And if people have access to internet, people have access to a smartphone or a digital device, then or a digital device, I think that this goal of equitable distribution of quality OER will become a reality. We are striving for that. That is the ultimate goal of equitable distribution of OER resources, and we are moving in that direction.
Sir, I have only
There are
one
many questions.
issue in this. Most of the applicable knowledge is in the commercial domain. I am talking
Right, sir.
about the research outputs, patents, all that. So knowledge probably as time goes on would never become equitable. There has to be a movement to make it equitable. What we are talking about is the sum of part of the teaching resources. But if you calculate percentage, the majority of applicable knowledge which has a commercial value goes into the intellectual property domain.
Do you want me to comment on this?
Please, please.
Yes, sir. From the very beginning, I have made it very clear that the West has monopoly over knowledge. And there are two types of people. One is the creator of knowledge, another is the consumer of knowledge. So those who are creator of knowledge, they are in the West, and we are the consumer of knowledge. The idea is through this open source movement, Creative Commons licensing movement, we want to bring as much of commercially available knowledge resources into the public domain. The way property is unevenly distributed, the way economic resources are unevenly distributed in the present world, similarly knowledge is also equally unevenly distributed. And Professor Das has very rightly said that all the quality knowledge resources are having a commercial value. I do agree with that. But with the beginning of the open source movement, open education movement, people have realized slowly that this knowledge is for everybody, knowledge does not have a price tag, and knowledge should come to the public domain. The movement has just started, and the movement is taking momentum. I'm not saying that overnight it will happen, but it will slowly, it will happen if we all contribute and change our mindset.
Thank you very much, sir. And we have a related question. How can we bring as much high-end contemporary research output into the open source? There are some difficulties. Difficulties being, authors usually transfer copyright to the publishers while publishing. And to go for open access, the authors have to bear the cost of the publication, which is not possible because there are very few opportunities in India to manage that cost from the institutions and funding agencies. Related to it is yet another phenomenon that about 5 years ago in the US, many people lobbied for the state universities, which are funded by the government, state university places, to make their knowledge sources free for people. Do we need to have some such movement in India also to have our state university places to make their materials available free of cost to the people in public domain?
Very interesting question. Now, let me cite one example of Coursera. Now, in Coursera, 160 universities, mostly the universities in the US and in the West, they have a consortium, and the platform is provided by Coursera. The content is generated by the university teachers, and they get royalty for that. But the course is partly given in open source, but vast majority of the course is available through payment of money in terms of admission, in terms of dollars. So Professor Das has rightly said that quality knowledge is always commercial, has a commercial tag. But what I'm trying to say is that, and it is a policy under the OER, anything, any knowledge, be it a video, be it a content, be it a book, be it a module, anything, which is created with government funds, public fund, money for which the government has sanctioned money. I have a strong feeling that nobody can say that my university has a position over it. I have a position over it. If I have been funded by ICSSR or UGC or by Government of Orissa or by Government of India or by any other Department of Science and Technology for any kind of research, and it is public money, then the knowledge that has been created out of the funds has to be in the knowledge domain, in the public domain, for everybody to have access to it, for everybody to have acquiring knowledge from it. So very rightly said that can the universities develop some kind of a open resource base where students and teachers can avail all the knowledge resources which are part of their curriculum, part of their syllabus, free of cost. I think it is possible. I was just thinking, and I am sharing my thoughts with Ashok sir and many of the honorable vice chancellors who are present here, because they are ultimate policy makers. Sir, when we prepare a curriculum, whether we call it a model curriculum at the undergraduate level, why when our academic council or the board of boards, they decide about the textbooks, why can't we accept those quality textbooks where the author will say that it will be available in open source? And why can't we take the initiative of digitizing these textbooks and putting it on the open source platform so that anyone and everyone, any student can have free access to those textbooks? We know that textbooks, though are prescribed in our syllabus, are not available to the students. In some cases, the textbooks are also not available to the teachers in some of the colleges. So why not some of the textbooks are put in the syllabus, which could be put in the open source and which could be available in the digital platform for anyone to access anytime, anywhere, either through a smartphone or through a laptop or through a desktop. So
Thank you, sir.
I'm pretty sure that the movement has started and it will continue.
Yeah, in fact, there are a couple of questions and we'll take them up one by one. This is a very pertinent question. Why, after almost 2 decades, open education resources have still not noticeably disrupted the traditional learning models of higher education?
See, the traditional learning models are deep rooted, and people, whether it is authors or publishers, they want a price tag to be attached to it. I know many of the university professors will agree with me that the moment their book is published, they feel satisfied. But if I ask them or you ask each other, do you get any royalty? They said that forget about the royalty, I don't get anything. The royalty goes to the publisher. So it is the publisher who is getting the royalty in the printed form because he is printing it. But if you make your material or your articles or your books in the digital format, use your own license in Creative Commons, you will have the satisfaction that your creation has reached the entire world. It has gone to different parts of the world. So that will give you more satisfaction. If you take knowledge creation has in this from centuries, the knowledge creation has taken place. But this open source movement is only a part of the 21st century. It is only 20-year-old and it will take time to get deep rooted. But I am pretty sure that in the next decade, things will open up. People will realize that knowledge is free and nobody can expressly have monopoly over knowledge.
Thank you, sir. And the last question, what are the prospects of job opportunities for students enrolling in open and distance learning?
See, this is a question which comes under my domain. What are the opportunities for the students in open and distance learning? I would say that, and I would promote now not distance learning. I would now promote guided self-study, which Government of Orissa has promoted for 25% of the course to be covered from the next academic session. That is partly open learning, that is partly digital learning, that is partly offline learning, that is partly open education resources, and that is distance education. But the primary focus is self-study by the students. I request the faculty to fulfill this mandate of giving, encouraging, motivating, mentoring, monitoring the students for 25% self-study, partly through online teaching, partly through offline resources which are already available in the OER platform, and partly through the textbooks which have been prescribed in the model syllabus. So under this platform, I would say that right now, people all over the globe are taking the help of online teaching and distance education learning. I am a promoter of distance education and online teaching, but at the same time, I would say that blended education, where there is a judicious combination of both regular teaching and digital teaching and distance learning material, is appropriate for a country like India, for a state like Orissa, and all the teachers from the next academic session should get prepared, mentally prepared to go for a blended kind of learning for the students to cover 25% of the syllabus which has been prescribed under the choice-based credit system as model syllabus for them.
And we thank you once again, sir, for this wonderful talk in the context of the post-industrial knowledge economy in which we all are living. Now, I request Professor Arkadas Mahapatra to take over.
Well, Professor Mahapatra, thank you again. We are very close to closure of this session, and therefore I take this privilege once again to thank on behalf of Sambalpur University our esteemed speaker, Professor Srikant Mahapatra, the Vice Chancellor of Odisha State Open University, for his eloquent talk on use of open resources in university level teaching and research. I also thank our own Vice Chancellor who initiated the discussion today, and thank every participant, including Dr. Ashok Das, who has been a source of inspiration for all of us, because he is actually attending all the sessions and his attendance is 100%. And, uh, and he is actually encouraging all others to take the most out of these deliberations that this university has actually planned. And Professor Srikant Mahapatra, sir, thank you so much that you accepted our invitation, and you will spend your valuable time. Now, I also thank all the distinguished participants, including the teachers, the research scholars. I'm very sure they will be getting immense benefit out of your talk and the knowledge that you have shared, particularly the inputs on open learning system. Uh, Before we close, I thank my team members who are actually facilitating organizing this particular webinar. And tomorrow we will have another important topic. It is paradigm shift in higher education pedagogy, blended learning as the new normal. This will be delivered by Professor Pradeep Kumar Chand, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of North Odisha University, Baripada. And I therefore invite every one of you to join us tomorrow, same time, for the tomorrow's talk. And with this, once again, I thank every one of you. Thank you, sir.